Criteria to benchmark digital institutions. Benchmarking is a technique which comes from business, but which is increasingly applied to institutions to basically compare various aspects of their performance with peer institutions. Sometimes the institutions get together in benchmarking clubs to do the benchmarking. On a few occasions, governments decide that they should themselves benchmark the institutions. So there are some links between benchmarking and quality review. And for about 10 years now, it's become quite popular for institutions to benchmark their e-learning, their online learning. And this is becoming very topical because as institutions move more firmly into the digital space, benchmarking digital activity becomes mission critical, and therefore benchmarking the level of competence in digital activity itself becomes mission critical. A benchmarking approach is normally driven by what are called criteria, and criteria are preferably simple statements which one then scores on a range. In my case, a range of 1 to 6, but other systems use different ranges, sometimes 1 to 4 or 1 to 5. There's no right number of levels. So the system I'm going to take my example from is called Pick and Mix, which is a system I developed for the UK government when they decided to benchmark institutions all the way back in 2005 under the first benchmark. It was actually called the Benchmarking e-learning program, and so it is very well tried. It has about 20 core criteria which are compulsory to use, and then you select a number of supplementary criteria. There's a strong recommendation that you don't use more than about 24 criteria, although some brave institutions use about 30. That's quite hard work. And it has stood the test of time very well and has adapted to modern digital institutions as well as more traditional uses of online learning. I'll take one particular criteria which is about training or staff development, and the way one divides that into levels is to reflect on how institutions go about staff development, and this tends to start off at a rather low level of no training, through levels of what departments might do in a more or less coordinated fashion. Then higher levels insist on more monitoring and perhaps even a review of the level of training achieved, and some institutions are very systematic about this. So it's very, very easy based on field experience to devise 6 levels for the criterion of training. That's just one of the many criteria. Some criteria have very strong theoretical bases, such as in the Rogers adoption cycle. Other criteria are just based on deep analysis of how institutions behave. The way to distinguish a mature benchmarking approach from the ones typically developed in shorter term projects is to look at what we call the tradecraft that goes along with the methodology. So there are a number of examples of how this works in Pick and Mix. One very important example is the moods. You can essentially take the same criterion statements, and by adapting what they refer to, you end up with a number of moods. So for example, there's what we call Mood Omega of Pick and Mix, which is designed basically to benchmark OER. Or if you were to loosen the wording slightly, you could benchmark open education just as well. There are similar moods for libraries, for what's called green IT, for teaching and learning generally, and no doubt there are others that I haven't heard of because there's a community which develops this as well. The other key point is to recognize that universities are very rarely monolithic bodies, so it's important also to benchmark what are called slices. These may be departments, faculties, or areas of activity, such as benchmarking all the open education activity in the institution. And this is the kind of approach which actually distinguishes, as I say, a mature methodology from one which was just invented for a particular paper, because you learn how to run these methodologies over a period of years. And that's how you know they work. And then you adapt the methodology in the light of feedback from the institutions.